While two elderly folks were eating dinner, their dog suddenly started barking like crazy. Moments later, the house began to shake. Thinking it was a landslide, they didn't waste time checking things out. They bolted for the basement. No sooner had they taken cover than the whole house felt like it was hit by an earthquake, rocked by a massive jolt. After what seemed like forever, the noise outside finally stopped. The couple crept out of the basement, only to be floored by what they saw. Their house was reduced to rubble, and two enormous footprints were stamped into the ground. Without hesitation, they reported the incident to the military. Captain Chris was convinced it had to be some giant creature, but after scouring a 20-mile radius along the footprints, they found nothing. It was as if the thing had vanished into thin air. They even deployed thermal imaging, but still came up empty-handed. A creature that big shouldn't just disappear. It had to be hiding somewhere. But the area was nothing but barren mountains. Where could it possibly be? What they didn't realize was that the creature was camouflaged among the mountains, blending in like a rock. Determined to track it down, Anna and her team brought in an archaeology professor who'd studied these giant creatures years ago. Back then, people thought he was nuts, and even had him locked up in a mental hospital for a while. But now, with new clues about the mountain monster, they realized the old professor had been right all along. They brought him to the spot where the creature had disappeared. The moment he arrived, the professor noticed something off about the soil smell. Anna, sensing he was onto something, followed close behind. Comparing the terrain to a map he'd made a decade earlier, the professor realized the landscape was all wrong. There was an extra mountain that didn't belong. As they were about to dive deeper into the map, the mountain behind them suddenly opened an eye. Anna whipped around and saw a massive eye staring right at them. She and the professor were scared out of their wits, but Anna snapped into action, grabbing the professor and making a run for it. Captain Chris showed up just in time to help, and the three of them sprinted toward a helicopter. As they scrambled aboard, the mountain monster let out a furious roar. Half an hour later, in a government meeting room, officials watched footage from the scene and finally accepted the creature's existence. A beast that massive was clearly a threat, so they informed Anna that the military would take over, planning to wipe the monster out with heavy firepower. The professor, however, insisted he knew the creature well and that its appearance wasn't malicious or random. His warnings fell on deaf ears. Soon, the military rolled into the jungle with all their firepower. Drones were sent out to scout, but 3 hours later, there was still no sign of the monster. Just as everyone started wondering where it could be hiding, the creature burst out from the trees.